guys, Andy here, and I'm here to bring you all things Monday makeup related. If that's your vibe, I'd love it if you would subscribe to be part of my little slice of the internet. And in today's video, I am bringing you my palette comparison episode 2, which is going to be the Colourpop High Tide versus the Viseart Water Lotus quad. So if you want to hear all of the details on these two palettes, figure out which eye is which, and just everything to do with these, then let's just jump into it. So if you didn't see episode 1, I will link that below. That was Natasha Denona Yucca versus the Ace Beauty Tropical Vibes palette. And as you saw in the intro, today is Colourpop High Tide versus the Viseart Water Lotus quad. So if you don't know what these look like, they're obviously teal, but Colourpop High Tide is a 9-pan, Viseart Water Lotus is a quad, but very, very similar in the shades that are similar. So, first we'll start with some info, then we'll do some swatches, then we'll go into what's on the eyes, and then we'll finish with some more info. Is I think how we're going to go ahead and do it. So I started with everything we're going to talk about is Viseart first, then Colourpop. So the Viseart Water Lotus quad has 4 shades. So we have 2 mattes and 2 duochromes. And this retails for $25. The pros and cons of this palette. The pros are the palette is magnetic itself. The shades are magnetic. You can take these out, move them around, put other Viseart shades that are this size in here. So that is a pro. A pro and a con, depending on how you feel and look at it, is that this is a monochromatic quad. So not everybody's into monochromatic palettes, and also the color story would be a pro or con depending on if you like this color story. That's more personal preference. A pro is that they're pigmented and they're long wearing. A con would be the price. $25 for a quad is a bit expensive. Viseart is expensive. I got all mine on sale, so that's why I bought a bunch of Viseart palettes. And a con would be lack of special shades, because even their duochromes are lighter, and then they don't have anything really other than that. So this is 31 grams, which would be 81 cents per gram of eyeshadow. Or if you want that conversion for ounces, this is 1.09 ounces. So that'd be $22.94 per ounce of product. The quad, this is still available on Viseart's website. Now to get into the Colourpop palette, obviously we have more variety because this is a 9-pan palette. So we have 1 sequin shade here, which is a matte with glitter. We have 3 shimmers, and the rest are true mattes. This is $14. The pros are that Colourpop's affordable. Again, a pro and a con are the fact that it's monochromatic in the color story, depending on how you look at it. Same thing. A pro is that this is pigmented, it has longevity, and apparently, I did not know this, these are wet sheen metallics. A con, depending on who you are, but I hear this from most people, would be that this palette has a sequin shade. I personally love Colourpop sequin shades. I love them. I love the mattes with glitter. I also love Colourpop pressed glitters. I feel like I'm in the minority with both of those opinions, but I feel like for most people that would be a con. Most people don't enjoy those shades. So this palette is 86 grams, which would be 16 cents per gram. Cheap, especially for how many grams of eyeshadow you're getting. Granted, this has 5 more shades in it, but still, 4 ounces, your comparison. This has 3.03 ounces of product in here, and it'd be $4.62 per ounce. Now, this is a discontinued palette. Colourpop does that. They discontinued this in early 2021 as part of like a larger cleanup of just lines of their product. I would assume, and this is allegedly, but I would assume that this palette didn't sell as well as they thought it was going to. So they were just like, nope, that one can go, when they were discontinuing a bunch of their other products to streamline their lineup. So we will get to those at the end. So now we're going to go ahead. We're going to swatch them. So here is also, I would feel like, is a con personally for me. I know a lot of people don't care, but for Viseart, there are no shade names on the back. And when you pull the shades out, there are no shade names on the back of the shades. So unless you label these yourself, which I'm going to have to, I did write down all of the shades when I bought these, because I wrote down the shifts, whether they're matte, duochrome, whatever, because I just like having that. But because if I were to move these all around, I would want to know where they originally came from and all of that. So I have them on a little piece of paper here. But we're just going to go ahead and swatch them first. I mean, I guess I can tell you where they came on my eye as we go. So first we'll go with, this is the shade Dewdrop. I started, this side is Viseart as my setting my crease shade. This is a matte. So there's the shade Dewdrop there. And I just wrote down that it's a really nice blending shade. Like, it was nice. And then I went into Lily Pad, which is the darker matte, which is more of like a true teal. And I liked it. It blended nicely. It has good color to it. I do just wish it was slightly darker. I wish that you could get just a little bit more depth out of this eye. And I feel like between the two, this looks more green, and this green teal, and this pulls more blue teal. But then all over the lid is the shade Pagoda here, which is a duo. They're both duochromes, but this has a gold shift. It's really pretty. Like, it's a soft duochrome, but up close you can really see the gold shift on it, and I think it's really, really pretty. And then the biggest dud for me in the palette is this first shade here, which is also a duochrome, and it's the shade Mizu. Like, it looks really pretty in swatch, but it just doesn't. It's on my inner corner, and it brightened the eye, but it doesn't have much base pigment. It didn't really leave much shifty shine behind. So that is the Viseart Quad, all swatched out. And I will say that I think that the look came out nice. It's soft, but it's very pretty for the color story. Like I said, it looks good in my opinion. Then we get into the Colourpop palette, and of course I only used 4 shades because I wanted to keep it cohesive, and I tried to use the shades that were the most similar, because I didn't notice that this pulled more green until I had them both on the eyes. So I started with the shade Currents, which is a matte, as my crease blending shade. And as you can see that difference there. But it's a great blending shade. Worked wonderfully. Then to just deepen my crease in my outer corner, I went into the matte New Wave. I just felt like both of those mattes were way too dark, and that wasn't dark. That was almost too blue. So there's New Wave, and I feel like that's pretty similar. So then for shimmers, I went in all over the lid with the shade Must See. Which I think is pretty comparable, except for the fact that this has that gold duochrome where this is just a flat shimmer. So when you're looking on the eye, it just doesn't have as much oomph going on, but it in tone is very similar. And then for my inner corner, I didn't think that either of those shimmers were going to do it. So I actually went in with the sequin shade because I thought that was going to provide the closest amount of brightness without crazy pigment. So there's the sequin shade. And again, it did brighten up the eye, but it didn't leave too much pigment behind. And in person, you can see the specks of glitter because I had to do about 3 layers of the bright shade on this eye. So that's what I did for the sequin shade on this side. And you can see the glitter because of that, because it's really packed on. I would say this came out obviously much more pigmented, but it still blended great. And yeah, I enjoy the look on this side as well. Overall, both palettes were powdery. The mattes are powdery. They were both easy to blend. They're both pigmented for their respective formulas. Like the Viseart one was pigmented. It's just like softer, if that makes sense. Like it's supposed to give you a more elegant, softer look, but for that, it is very pigmented. Like this is not a wisp of color. Like that's pigmented, but it's just not this, you know? But I still don't think that this is crazy at the same time. So then we have 3 questions to answer. Do the palettes dupe each other? And I would say, honestly, now that I'm looking at them in the lights, no. Because I was going to say yes originally, because I think the 4 shades that I picked really did a nice job. But looking at them in the camera, this is blue and this is more green. So I'm actually going to say no. They do not dupe each other, which is nice because personally, I really do agree that on first glance, like when I pulled these out for Ian to pick what palette I used, he was like, those are the same palette. The next question is, do I need both? I mean, probably not, to be honest, but you can't get this Colourpop palette anymore. And I love the depth that this gives for the color that it gives. It's not every day that I reach for a teal, but I love this. I do really enjoy this palette. I like all 3 shades but this one, and I love that you can mix and match and move your Viseart palettes around. So I think it's going to be one of those that once I've tried all my Viseart palettes, I might, maybe I'll have a whole quad of shades that I don't like. So then I can move other shades into another palette and declutter a whole quad. So though I don't really enjoy that one shade, the other 3 I like, and it is a different look. So do I need both? No, of course not, but I want both. And the final shade is, which is better? And of course that's subjective because that always comes down to personal preference. For me, and the makeup that I do and the style that I like, I'm going with Colourpop being better. I prefer the Colourpop just for how I do my makeup, but I'm not saying that this is bad. If you prefer a lighter, more sophisticated, just softer formula and are willing to pay the price for what it is, I don't see anything wrong with the Viseart side. Just for the price, for what it is, for how many shades you get, for the pigment. For me personally, the Colourpop one is better. So that is going to do it. We aren't decluttering any palettes from this episode. Like I said in the first episode, my goal of the series isn't to necessarily declutter any palettes. If it happens, then great, because I don't want duplicates in my collection. But I'm not out here to make me have to declutter something. Like, these are different enough that I feel comfortable keeping both in my collection, and I'm happy with that. But I hope that this was interesting, that this was nice enough for you. And yeah, this is my first video with the new black hair. So let me know how you're feeling that as well. But otherwise, that's going to do it. And I will see you guys in the next one. Bye, guys.